I never expected a casual text message to unravel my entire marriage. When my husband Ethan sent that photo from an expensive resort with his sister Natalie and brother-in-law Jason, captioned, "Enjoying using your card," I was confused. My ATM card was right there in my wallet. The moment I mentioned this on our call, the line went silent. I could almost see the color draining from his face through the phone. That brief conversation triggered an avalanche of discoveries about my finances, my marriage, and the carefully constructed lies that had become my life. 6 years ago, when I walked down the aisle toward Ethan, I truly believed I had found my forever person. At 32 years old, I had kissed enough frogs to know when I had found a prince, or so I thought. We met at a charity fundraiser for a local children's hospital. I was there representing my interior design firm, which had donated services to help renovate the hospital's family waiting areas. Ethan attended as part of a contingent from his financial services company. He approached me near the silent auction display, charming me with genuine questions about my design work rather than the usual small talk. "That waiting room transformation in the brochure that was your work?" he asked, his blue eyes reflecting sincere interest. "The way you combined functionality with comfort is remarkable. My mom spent weeks in hospitals when I was a kid. A space like that would have made all the difference. That personal connection, that understanding of why my work mattered, hooked me immediately." Within 3 months, we were inseparable. By 6 months, he had proposed during a weekend trip to Lake Tahoe, the ring perfectly chosen to match my taste, a vintage setting that spoke to my love of timeless design. Our wedding was everything I had dreamed of, not extravagant by celebrity standards, but certainly lavish compared to most of our friends' celebrations. 150 guests at a restored historic mansion, with every detail thoughtfully chosen. I handled the aesthetics while Ethan managed the finances, a division that would become the template for our marriage. My business, Aligned Interiors, had grown steadily since I founded it 4 years before meeting Ethan. I specialized in mindful spaces for busy professionals, creating environments that supported both productivity and well-being. My client list was strong and growing, and I took pride in handling my business finances meticulously. Ethan worked as a wealth management advisor at Carter Financial Group. His work helping others invest wisely made him seem like the perfect partner to handle our joint finances. We maintained separate accounts for our individual incomes, but created a joint savings account for emergencies and major purchases like home renovations or vacations. "It gives us both independence while building together," Ethan had explained. "You focus on growing your business, and I'll make sure our investments are working hard for our future." This arrangement had seemed perfect, allowing me to concentrate on creative aspects of my business while having peace of mind that our shared financial future was secure. The first few years of marriage were a comfortable routine of career growth, weekend adventures, and building our home together. We bought a 1920s Craftsman style house that needed work, my dream project. I transformed it room by room while Ethan boasted to friends about my talent for seeing potential where others saw outdated spaces. Looking back, I can now pinpoint when things began to shift. It started about 10 months ago, with subtle changes: Ethan working later than usual, becoming protective of his phone, declining weekend plans that he would have previously enjoyed. Just swamped with a new client portfolio, he would explain when I noticed the late nights. "These market fluctuations have everyone anxious." I trusted him completely. Why wouldn't I? He had never given me reason to doubt. Around this time, his sister Natalie and her husband Jason began featuring more prominently in our lives. Natalie was 3 years younger than Ethan, an event planner with a flair for the dramatic both professionally and personally. She had always been close to her brother, sometimes uncomfortably so, with inside jokes and childhood references that often left me feeling like an outsider. Jason worked in pharmaceutical sales, a job that kept him traveling frequently. Quieter than his wife, he nevertheless matched her taste for luxury designer clothes, expensive restaurants, and frequent complaints about their starter home that most would consider more than adequate. I had always maintained a cordial relationship with them both, though I wouldn't call us close. Natalie had a way of making subtle comparisons that left me feeling inadequate, commenting on my practical car compared to her luxury SUV, or wondering aloud how I managed with such a small closet in our vintage home. What I first failed to notice, but later became glaringly obvious, was how frequently Ethan began spending time with them without me. "Natalie needs help with some investments," he would say, or "just grabbing drinks with Jason to discuss some portfolio options for them." I never questioned these explanations. Financial discussions were Ethan's domain, just as I wouldn't expect him to weigh in on fabric choices for a client's office redesign. One Tuesday morning, while searching for a receipt in our home office for a business expense, I opened a drawer that typically contained our filed bank statements. I was in a hurry, late for a client meeting, but a figure on the top statement caught my eye. A withdrawal of $4,000 on a date when I knew we had no major expenses planned. Thinking it must be an error, I quickly flipped through the previous statements. More large withdrawals, $3,000 here, $2,500 there, all in the past 6 months. The client meeting forced me to set aside my questions, but that statement marked the first crack in what I had believed was a perfect marriage. Last Friday should have been a routine day. I was returning early from a 2-day consultation with a tech company in Portland, excited to surprise Ethan with the news that I had secured the contract to redesign their entire headquarters, a project that would take my business to an entirely new level. My flight landed at 2 in the afternoon instead of the evening arrival I had originally planned. I took a rideshare home, picturing Ethan's proud expression when I told him about the contract. Maybe we could celebrate over dinner, getting a head start on our anniversary weekend. When the driver pulled up to our house, I noticed Ethan's car was gone, which wasn't unusual for a weekday afternoon. I rolled my suitcase up the front walk, taking a moment to appreciate the hydrangeas that were just beginning to bloom along our porch. Inside, the house felt emptier than usual. I called out Ethan's name out of habit, receiving only silence in response. In the kitchen, a note was propped against the coffee maker in Ethan's neat handwriting. "Had to leave for the weekend. Back Sunday night. Sorry for the late notice." I stood staring at the paper, confusion giving way to hurt. This weekend marked 6 years since our first date. Not our wedding anniversary, but a date we always acknowledged with at least a special dinner. We had tentatively planned a quiet evening at home. Nothing elaborate, but significant nonetheless. I pulled out my phone and called Ethan. The call went straight to voicemail. I sent a text. "Just got home. Where are you? Everything okay?" No response. An hour passed as I unpacked and tried to distract myself from growing anxiety. Why would he leave without telling me? Where had he gone? Was there an emergency? I called again. Straight to voicemail. By 6 that evening, my worry had transformed into a knot of dread in my stomach. I called his office, only to get their after-hours message. I even tried calling his mother, who lived in Arizona, to see if there was a family emergency I hadn't been informed about. "No, dear," she said, sounding surprised. "I spoke to Ethan 2 days ago, and everything was fine. He didn't mention any trips." Around 7:30, my phone finally chimed with a notification. A photo message from Ethan. Relief flooded through me until I opened it to find a group selfie. Ethan, Natalie, and Jason, grinning widely on what looked like a resort balcony, mountains visible in the background. The message below read, "Enjoying using your card. This place is amazing." I stared at the image, uncomprehending. My card? What did that mean? Instinctively, I reached for my purse and pulled out my wallet. My ATM card was exactly where it always was, tucked into its slot. I enlarged the photo, noticing the branded robes they were wearing. Pinnacle Ridge Resort, an exclusive mountain getaway about 3 hours from our home. I had always wanted to go there, dropping hints to Ethan about their spa packages for a future anniversary. My confusion gave way to a cold clarity. I called the resort. Pinnacle Ridge. How may I direct your call? A cheerful voice answered. Hello. I believe my husband checked in today. Ethan Walker? A brief pause. Yes. Mr. Walker checked in this afternoon for the weekend package. Would you like me to connect you to his room? The weekend package, I repeated. Could you tell me what that includes? The Pinnacle Premium Experience includes the Mountain, View Suite, couples massages, private dining, and exclusive access to our infinity pool and premium bar. It's our most popular romantic getaway. Romantic getaway. The words echoed in my head. And how many guests are registered to the room? Let me see. It shows 3 adults in the premium suite. I thanked her and declined to be connected to the room. Instead, I tried calling Natalie, who also didn't answer. With shaking hands, I sent a reply to Ethan's text. What card are you talking about? Mine is right here with me. I watched as the message was delivered, then read. No reply came. 5 minutes later, I called Ethan again. This time, he answered. Hey, he said. Background noise suggesting he was in a public space. What's up? What do you mean, what's up? I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. You left without telling me, on our anniversary weekend, and now you're at Pinnacle Ridge with your sister and Jason? Oh, it was a last-minute thing, he said dismissively. Natalie got a deal through her event planning connections. Too good to pass up. And what did you mean about using my card? My ATM card is right here in my wallet. The line went silent. When Ethan spoke again, his voice had lost its casual tone. I meant the points card. You know, the rewards program we signed up for. We had no such program. Ethan, we don't have a rewards program for Pinnacle Ridge. Another silence. Listen, I can't talk right now. We're heading to dinner. I'll explain everything when I get back, okay? Before I could respond, he hung up. I sat at our kitchen island, phone in hand, replaying the conversation. His lie had been so transparent, so hastily constructed. But why lie about something so easily disproven? A terrible suspicion began forming in my mind. I went to our home office and began methodically going through the filing cabinet where Ethan kept our financial documents. In the back of a folder labeled Home Insurance, I found what I was looking for: statements from my personal bank account. Accounts I had never given him access to. And there it was, in black and white. A second ATM card had been issued for my personal account 3 months ago. A card I hadn't requested or received. My stomach churned as I continued searching, finding more hidden documents, credit card statements showing purchases I'd never made, bank notices about changes to account access that I'd never authorized. In that moment, sitting surrounded by paper evidence of betrayal, I realized that the foundation of trust I had built my marriage on was nothing but an illusion. The discovery of the duplicate ATM card felt like finding the first thread in a sweater pull-on-it, and everything begins to unravel. I spent Friday night methodically documenting every piece of evidence I found, creating a timeline of financial movements that made less sense with each addition. By Saturday morning, I needed perspective from someone I trusted. I called Taylor, my friend since college, and the person who had actually introduced me to the charity event where I met Ethan. Can you come over? I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. I need your eyes on something. To her credit, Taylor arrived within 40 minutes, coffee and pastries in hand. This better be important. I was planning to sleep until noon, she joked, before seeing my face. What happened? I laid out the documents across the dining table, the duplicate card information, the mysterious withdrawals, the hidden statements. Taylor listened without interrupting as I explained the situation, including Ethan's sudden trip to Pinnacle Ridge. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment, absently turning her coffee cup in her hands. There's something you should know, she finally said. I wasn't sure if I should tell you, but with this. She gestured at the papers spread across the table. Tell me what? 3 weeks ago, I saw Ethan at Lavaro's. He was with a woman, not Natalie, she clarified quickly. Younger. They looked intimate. Lavaro's was an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place you took someone to impress them. Ethan and I had been there only twice, for special occasions. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. He said they were colleagues when I approached their table. The woman looked uncomfortable. I wanted to believe him, Taylor admitted. And I didn't want to hurt you without being certain. I nodded, adding this new information to the growing picture. What did she look like? Blonde. Thin. 20-something maybe? Very polished looking. With Taylor's help, I spent the next 2 hours conducting a more thorough search of our home office. Behind the row of financial planning books on Ethan's shelf, we found a USB drive that contained spreadsheets tracking transfers between accounts, including movements from my business account to investment portfolios I knew nothing about. In his desk drawer, beneath a false bottom that Taylor discovered by accident, we found credit card statements showing charges for jewelry, designer clothing, and dinners at restaurants I'd never been to. Most damning were the hotel receipts from dates when Ethan had told me he was on overnight business trips, the Drake Hotel in Chicago, the Waldorf in New York, always deluxe rooms, always with charges for two. This is methodical, Taylor said, examining the documentation. This isn't just hiding a shopping habit or a one-time mistake. This is calculated, I finished for her. Planned. We took a break around noon, ordering sandwiches that neither of us had much appetite for. While waiting for delivery, I checked my email and found several notifications from my business account. Payments that should have cleared were being flagged for insufficient funds. That's impossible, I told Taylor, pulling up my business banking portal. I maintain a careful reserve, but the account balance was far lower than it should have been. Regular transfers had been set up to an investment account I didn't recognize small enough amounts to stay under my radar during monthly reconciliation, but substantial when added together over time. You need to call the bank, Taylor said. Right now. The bank confirmed my fears. Someone had been systematically moving funds from my business account using online transfers. The representative asked if I wanted to report fraud. Not yet, I said, earning a surprised look from Taylor. I need to understand the full picture first. After hanging up, I explained my thinking. If I report fraud now, everything freezes. Ethan will be alerted. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with before I make that move. We continued our investigation, finding emails between Ethan and Natalie in his poorly protected email account. Most were vague, but certain phrases stood out. A needs to stay focused on her business. She doesn't need to worry about these details. Don't mention the Meridian account when you see her. We'll figure out a better story for the weekend. I won't question it. The most recent email from Natalie, dated just days ago, read, M says she needs more this month. Can you make it work? She's threatening to call A directly. M, the blonde from Lavaro's? Around 4 in the afternoon, Taylor discovered the burner phone. It was in a locked box in Ethan's nightstand, the key hidden in his sock drawer. The phone contained only one contact, M, and hundreds of text messages. I couldn't bring myself to read them all, but a sampling told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just financial infidelity. This was actual infidelity, wrapped up in financial deception. I think M is Megan, Taylor said, showing me a text that used the full name. Should we search for her online? A basic search for Megan and Ethan Walker yielded nothing, but when we added model based on a reference in one text, we found her. Megan Tate, an aspiring model with an extensive Instagram presence, showing a lifestyle of designer clothes, exotic vacations, and exclusive restaurants, all potentially funded by my business account and our joint savings. As the afternoon stretched into evening, the scope of Ethan's deception became clearer. This wasn't just about an affair or unauthorized use of my ATM card. This was about systematic financial abuse, that had put my business, my passion, and livelihood at risk. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when I checked my spam folder and found emails from our mortgage company that Ethan had apparently set up to be diverted from my inbox. They referenced a home equity line of credit application I had never signed. The application listed my business as collateral. I sat back in my chair, the room spinning slightly. "He was willing to risk everything I've built," I said to Taylor, who had remained steadfastly by my side throughout this nightmare of a day. "My business, our home, everything." "What are you going to do?" she asked. I looked at the evidence spread across our dining table, kitchen counters, and coffee table. Papers, statements, emails, texts, the physical manifestation of betrayal. "I'm going to take back what's mine," I said. "All of it." By Sunday morning, Taylor had reluctantly gone home, making me promise to call her immediately if Ethan returned early. I spent the day systematically building my case, organizing the evidence, and formulating a plan. First, I called Derek Hampton, a financial advisor I had worked with when setting up retirement accounts for my employees. I explained the situation in clinical terms, as if discussing a theoretical case rather than my imploding marriage. "This is serious, Eliza," Derek said after I outlined the unauthorized transfers and accounts. "What you're describing isn't just unethical, it's potentially criminal. Financial fraud doesn't get less illegal just because you're married to the perpetrator." "What would you recommend as immediate steps?" I asked. "Secure what assets you can, change passwords, contact your bank's fraud department, not just customer service. Consider freezing your credit to prevent any new accounts being opened. And honestly, consult with a lawyer, preferably one specializing in both family law and financial fraud." I thanked him and made my next call to Amanda Reeves, an attorney several of my business clients had recommended for her straightforward approach to complex situations. "I can see you tomorrow morning at 8, she said, after hearing a condensed version of my story. "Bring all the documentation you've found, especially anything showing unauthorized transfers from your business accounts. Time is critical in cases like this." With professional guidance scheduled, I turned to immediate protection measures. I spent 2 hours changing every password I could think of: email accounts, banking portals, social media, cloud storage. I set up two-factor authentication wherever possible and created new security questions that Ethan wouldn't be able to guess. I called my bank's fraud department and spoke with an investigator named Rachel, who helped me place alerts on all my accounts and freeze the duplicate card Ethan had created. We scheduled a formal meeting for Monday to review all unauthorized transactions. "Don't confront him alone if you can avoid it," Rachel advised. "Financial desperation can make people unpredictable. If you feel unsafe at any point, leave immediately and call the police." Her warning gave me pause. Would Ethan become dangerous when confronted? I had never seen him exhibit violent behavior, but then again, I had never seen him exhibit calculated financial deceit either. I added security consultation to my growing to-do list. Around noon, I received a call from Grace, my business partner at Aligned Interiors. "Eliza, I hate to bother you on a Sunday, but we've got a situation. The check to our main fabric supplier was returned for insufficient funds. They're threatening to hold our orders for the Portland project." My heart sank. The Portland project, my biggest achievement to date, was already being impacted. "I'm handling it, Grace. There's been an issue with our accounts that I'm resolving. Can you call them first thing tomorrow and tell them we'll wire the funds directly?" After reassuring Grace, I turned my attention to social media, curious if there might be more connections between Ethan's deception and his online presence. What I found was illuminating. Natalie had checked in at Pinnacle Ridge on Instagram, tagging both Ethan and Jason. The photos showed a luxury suite with mountain views, champagne bottles, and room service spreads that probably cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. But it was a comment on one of the photos that caught my attention. Someone named Meg Tate had written, "Looks amazing. Wish I was there." To which Natalie had responded, "Next time for sure. E says hi." Following the lead, I checked Megan Tate's Instagram. While she hadn't posted any photos with Ethan, smart enough to keep that private, apparently, her recent posts showed her wearing a diamond bracelet that matched a charge on one of the hidden credit card statements. Another post showed her at the Waldorf during the exact dates Ethan had claimed to be at a financial conference in New York. I was taking screenshots of these connections when I received a text from an unfamiliar number. "Is this Eliza?" "It's Jessica, Natalie's friend from college. Can we talk?" Cautious but curious, I called the number. "Thanks for calling back," Jessica said. "I've been debating whether to reach out, but after seeing Natalie's post this weekend, I couldn't stay silent anymore." "What about her posts?" I asked. "It's not just the posts. Look, Natalie and Jason have been having serious financial problems for over a year now. They nearly lost their house last fall because of Natalie's shopping addiction. She maxes out credit cards faster than Jason can pay them off." This was news to me. Natalie and Jason had always presented themselves as successful and financially stable. "What does this have to do with Ethan?" I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer. "Ethan's been bailing them out repeatedly. At first, I thought he was just being a supportive brother, but the amounts kept growing. Last time I was at their place, I overheard them arguing about using someone else's money. Natalie said something like, 'Eliza doesn't need to know. She's too busy with her little business.' That's when I realized they might be using your money without your knowledge." The pieces were falling into place. Ethan's fraud wasn't just funding an affair, it was supporting his sister's unsustainable lifestyle as well. "Do you know anything about a woman named Megan?" I asked. Jessica's pause was answer enough. "I've seen her with Ethan a few times, when Natalie invited me to meet them for drinks. Natalie introduced her as Ethan's work friend, but it was obvious there was more to it." "I'm sorry, Eliza. I should have said something sooner." After thanking Jessica for her honesty, I added this new information to my growing case file. The picture was becoming clearer. Ethan was stealing from me to fund both his sister's financial irresponsibility and his relationship with Megan. The audacity was breathtaking. By late afternoon, I had formulated my confrontation strategy. I would not be emotional. I would not be accusatory. I would simply present facts, document his responses, and let the evidence speak for itself. I prepared our dining room as the stage for this final act of our marriage. I positioned the evidence in chronological order, from the earliest signs of deception to the most recent discoveries. I set up a small audio recorder, legal in our state, as long as one party to the conversation was aware of the recording. As evening approached, I received a text from Ethan. "Heading home now. Should be back around 8. I replied simply, "I'll be waiting." The stage was set. The evidence was arranged. Now, all that remained was the confrontation itself. At 7:52, I heard Ethan's car pull into our driveway. I sat at the dining table, a single lamp illuminating the spread of documents before me. My laptop was open, displaying the screenshot of his sister's Instagram post with Megan's comment. The front door opened. "Eliza?" Ethan called out, his voice carrying that forced casualness that now seemed so obviously fake to me. "In the dining room," I replied, keeping my voice steady. His footsteps approached, and then he appeared in the doorway, weekend bag still in hand. He was tanned from the mountain sun, wearing the expensive watch I had given him for his birthday last year. "Hey," he said, setting his bag down. "How was your weekend?" The normalcy of the question, as if he hadn't disappeared for a romantic getaway funded by stolen money, nearly broke my composure. "Enlightening," I answered. "How was Pinnacle Ridge?" If he was surprised by my knowledge of his specific destination, he didn't show it. "Amazing. Their spa treatments are incredible. You'd love it." He moved toward me as if to offer a welcome, home kiss. I held up my hand to stop him. "I'm curious about something. In your text, you mentioned enjoying using my card. What did you mean by that? Since my card has been in my wallet the entire time. The casual smile froze on his face. Oh, that. It was just a joke about how we've been saving for a trip like that. You know, your money, my money, our money, kind of thing. Interesting, I said, sliding a document toward him. Because, according to this statement from my bank, a duplicate ATM card for my personal account was issued 3 months ago. A card I never requested or received. His expression shifted, almost imperceptibly, from confusion to calculation. I could almost see him running through possible explanations, trying to find one that would sound plausible. That must be a mistake, he said finally. You know how banks make errors sometimes. A 3-month-long error that resulted in thousands of dollars being withdrawn from my account? That's quite a mistake. I pushed another document forward. Or these transfers from my business account to an investment portfolio I've never heard of, are those mistakes too? Ethan's facade began to crack. Aliza, I can explain. I've been working on a surprise for you. An investment opportunity that I wanted to have all set up before telling you about it. A surprise, I repeated flatly. Is that why you hid all these statements? Why you diverted my emails from our mortgage company? Why you applied for a home equity line of credit using my business as collateral without my knowledge? With each question, I presented another piece of evidence. Ethan remained standing, his eyes darting between the documents and my face, his own complexion growing paler. You're making this sound worse than it is, he said, his voice taking on a defensive edge. I'm your husband. We're supposed to be partners. Sometimes I make financial decisions without consulting you because it's my area of expertise. Partners don't steal from each other, Ethan, I said quietly. Partners don't lie about where they're going and who they're with. Partners don't take out loans against the other's business without consent. I turned my laptop to fully face him, showing Megan Tate's Instagram page with the diamond bracelet post prominently displayed. Next to it, I placed the credit card statement, showing the exact amount from Chandler's Jewelers. Is Megan a partnership decision too? I asked. The color drained completely from his face. For a moment, he looked like he might deny it, but then his shoulders slumped slightly. It's not what you think, he began, falling back on the classic cheater's defense. Then what is it, Ethan? Explain to me how my money is being used to buy jewelry for another woman. Explain the hotel rooms, the restaurants, the weekend trips when you were supposedly at business conferences. He pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. You're always so busy with your business. Working late, traveling to meet clients. Megan appreciates the time I spend with her. The sheer audacity of trying to blame me for his affair stunned me momentarily. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text. Glancing down, I saw it was from Jason. Natalie called Ethan in a panic. They're coming to your house. Just wanted you to know. Perfect timing. Within 20 minutes, the doorbell rang. Ethan moved to answer it, perhaps hoping his sister would provide some support or distraction. Instead, he returned to the dining room with both Natalie and Jason in tow. Natalie rushed to Ethan's side, placing a protective hand on his shoulder. What's going on? Ethan says you're accusing him of stealing, or something ridiculous. Not accusing, I corrected calmly. Presenting evidence. Evidence that shows Ethan has been systematically taking money from my accounts without permission and using it to fund your lifestyle, among other things. Our lifestyle? Jason asked, looking confused. What are you talking about? I directed my gaze to Natalie. Jessica told me about your financial problems. About nearly losing your house because of shopping addiction. About Ethan bailing you out repeatedly. Natalie's face flushed. Jessica had no right to discuss our private business. Just like you had no right to spend my money, I countered. Money I earned through my little business that apparently isn't important enough for you to respect. Jason turned to his wife, confusion evident. What is she talking about, Natalie? What money? The room went silent as Natalie and Ethan exchanged glances. It was clear from Jason's reaction that he hadn't been aware of the full extent of their financial arrangements. "You didn't know?" I asked Jason directly. He shook his head slowly. "I knew we had money troubles. I knew Ethan helped us out occasionally, but I thought it was from their joint accounts, with your knowledge." He turned to Natalie, his expression hardening. "What have you been doing behind my back?" Natalie's composure cracked. "It wasn't like that. We needed help, and Ethan offered. He said Eliza wouldn't even notice. The business was doing so well, and they had so much saved. So you decided to help yourselves to it," I finished for her. "Without asking, without telling, just taking what wasn't yours because you felt entitled to it." "We're family," Ethan interjected, as if that explained and excused everything. "And what about Megan?" I asked. "Is she family too? Is that why she gets diamond bracelets and weekends at the Waldorf paid for with my business funds?" Jason's head snapped up. "Megan? The model? What does she have to do with this?" The look of betrayal on his face mirrored what I imagined my own had been when I first discovered the truth. In that moment, I found an unexpected ally in Jason, who seemed just as blindsided as I had been. "Ethan has been having an affair with Megan," I explained, keeping my voice clinical rather than accusatory, "funding it partially with money taken from my accounts and partially with our joint savings." "That's not." Ethan started to object, but I cut him off by showing him the printouts of text messages between him and Megan that I had found on the burner phone. "Not what, Ethan? Not an affair? Not my money?" "The evidence says otherwise." As the four of us sat around my dining table, the carefully constructed facade that had been our intertwined lives began to crumble completely. Jason demanded explanations from Natalie about their finances. Natalie oscillated between defensiveness and tearful apologies. Ethan tried repeatedly to minimize his actions, framing them as simple misunderstandings rather than deliberate fraud. Through it all, I remained calm, presenting document after document that contradicted their excuses and justifications. The evening unfolded like a courtroom drama, with me as both prosecutor and judge, laying out a case that became more damning with each piece of evidence. By the time the confrontation reached its peak, one truth had become abundantly clear. The trust that had once formed the foundation of my marriage was irreparably broken. No explanation, no apology, could rebuild what had been so methodically destroyed. As the night wore on, our dining room became a battlefield of emotions and revelations. Ethan's initial shock had given way to a calculated desperation. He paced the room, alternating between attempting to minimize his actions and trying to cast himself as a victim of circumstance. "You don't understand the pressure," he said, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "Natalie needed help, and as her brother, what was I supposed to do? Let her lose her house? Watch her marriage fall apart over financial stress?" "You could have talked to me," I countered. "We could have decided together how to help them, if that's what this was really about." "You would have said no," Natalie interjected, her voice small but still carrying an undercurrent of entitlement. "You've always been so careful with money, so rigid about your business. Careful and rigid enough to build something worth stealing from, apparently," I replied, the words sharper than I intended. Jason, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during much of the exchange, suddenly stood up. "I need to know exactly how much of our debt Ethan has been paying, and where that money really came from." I slid the relevant documents toward him, spreadsheets showing transfers from my accounts to Natalie and Jason's mortgage company, credit card companies, and car loan provider. The total was staggering, even spread over months. Jason's face paled as he read the figures. "I had no idea," he said, looking up at his wife. "You told me we were managing, that the extra work you took on was covering the gaps." Natalie's composure finally broke completely. "I was drowning, Jason. The credit cards, the shopping, I couldn't stop. Every time I tried, the anxiety got so bad I couldn't function. Ethan was the only one who understood. He didn't judge me like you would have. So instead of getting help, You stole from your sister, in law? Jason asked, disgust evident in his voice. How is that a solution? It wasn't stealing, Ethan insisted. It was family, helping family. Eliza's business is part of our family assets. My business is mine, I said firmly. Built with my education, my talent, my labor. You have no right to it, legal or moral. Ethan's expression darkened. That's where you're wrong. Marriage means shared assets. I've contributed to your success by supporting you, by handling our finances so you could focus on design. Handling our finances? I repeated incredulously. Is that what you call creating duplicate cards? Hiding statements? Setting up unauthorized transfers? That's not handling finances, Ethan. That's fraud. Don't throw that word around, he snapped, a flash of panic crossing his features. You don't want to start making accusations you can't take back. The threat was thinly veiled but clear. If I pursued this as fraud, it would have consequences for his career, for his freedom. I'm not making accusations, I said evenly. I'm stating facts. Facts documented by bank records, credit card statements, and unauthorized account applications with forged signatures. My mind flashed back to earlier moments in our marriage, now cast in an entirely new light. The times Ethan had accidentally opened my bank statements. The questions about my business clients and their payment schedules. The suggestions that I upgrade my business accounting software to one that would sync better with our home finances software he would have had access to. How long had he been planning this? How long had I been blind to the systematic betrayal happening under my own roof? Natalie's tearful voice broke through my thoughts. I never meant for it to go this far. The shopping, it's like an addiction. I get this rush when I buy something new, and then the guilt comes, and the only way to feel better is to shop more. It's a cycle I can't break on my own. So you dragged everyone down with you? Jason asked, his earlier anger now tinged with something like pity. Me, Ethan, Eliza, all of us paying the price for your problem? I'll get help, Natalie promised, reaching for Jason's hand. Real help this time. Therapy, support groups, whatever it takes. Jason withdrew his hand. It's too late for promises, Nat. The trust is gone. His words echoed my own feelings about Ethan. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. Ethan, sensing he was losing control of the situation, tried a different approach. Eliza, think about what you're doing. If you pursue this as fraud, it affects all of us. My career would be over. Your business would be dragged through a scandal. Is that really what you want? What I want, I said slowly, is justice. What I want is every dollar returned to my accounts. What I want is for you to stop pretending you're the victim when you're the architect of this entire situation. His expression hardened. And what about Megan? Are you going to drag her into this too? Publicly humiliate all of us? Before I could answer, my phone rang. The caller ID showed it was Rachel from the bank's fraud department calling outside of business hours. I need to take this, I said, stepping into the kitchen for some privacy. Mrs. Walker, Rachel's voice came through clearly. I'm sorry to call so late, but there's been an attempt to access your frozen accounts. Multiple attempts, actually, within the last hour. My heart raced. From where? Our system shows login attempts from your home IP address. The correct username was entered, but the password failed because you changed it. Then there were attempts to reset the password using security questions. I thought of Ethan, excusing himself to use the bathroom shortly after arriving home. He must have been trying to access my accounts, perhaps to hide evidence or transfer more funds before I discovered the full extent of the fraud. Thank you for letting me know, I told Rachel. I'll make sure no further attempts are made. When I returned to the dining room, Ethan was hunched over his phone, typing rapidly. He quickly set it down when he saw me. Problem? He asked, attempting casual concern. Interesting timing, I replied. The fraud department just called about someone trying to access my frozen accounts from this house. Within the last hour, the color drained from Ethan's face for the second time that evening. You froze the accounts? He asked, his voice barely audible. I froze everything, I confirmed. Changed all passwords. Set up new security questions. Reported the duplicate card as fraud. Tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with both the bank investigators and my lawyer. Your lawyer? Ethan's voice rose in panic. Eliza, you can't be serious. We can work this out between us. No need for lawyers. There's every need, I countered. This isn't just about our marriage anymore. This is about my business, my employees, my professional reputation. You put all of that at risk. Ethan's phone buzzed with an incoming text. He glanced at it, his expression shifting from panic to calculation. Who's that? I asked, though I already suspected. No one, he said too quickly. Is it Megan? Is she wondering why the money tap has suddenly turned off? Before he could answer, Jason stood up. I've heard enough. Natalie, we're leaving. We have our own reckoning to deal with. He turned to me. Eliza, I had no idea about any of this. If there's anything I can do to help make this right, just tell the truth, I said. If it comes to legal proceedings, tell the truth about what you knew and when. After they left, Ethan and I sat in silence for several long moments. The house felt different now. No longer a home, but a crime scene of sorts. The site of years of calculated deception. What happens now? Ethan finally asked, his voice smaller than I had ever heard it. Now I protect what's mine, I answered simply. Starting tonight. Just as the words left my mouth, my phone rang again. Rachel from the bank, once more. Mrs. Walker, I apologize for the multiple calls, but something concerning has come up in our preliminary investigation. The account patterns we're seeing. They match a case we handled about 4 years ago. A case involving Ethan Walker and a former girlfriend named Renee Chambers. The name meant nothing to me, but the implication was clear. What kind of case? I asked, watching Ethan's face as he tried to overhear my conversation. Financial fraud, Rachel replied. Miss Chambers ultimately dropped the charges, but the documentation in our system shows striking similarities to what you're reporting now. I thought you should know before your meeting tomorrow. After hanging up, I looked at Ethan with new understanding. This isn't your first time, is it? Renee Chambers dropped the charges, but the bank remembers. The flash of recognition in his eyes confirmed everything. This wasn't a mistake or a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a pattern of behavior, a calculated approach to relationships that I had been blind to. In that moment, any lingering doubt about my course of action vanished. The man I had married, the man I thought I knew, had never existed at all. The weeks following that confrontation night unfolded in a blur of legal meetings, financial investigations, and emotional processing. With Amanda Reeves guiding my legal strategy, we moved swiftly to protect my assets and business. First came the formal fraud report's detailed documentation of every unauthorized transaction, every forged signature, every hidden account. The bank's investigation corroborated my claims, flagging dozens of suspicious activities that painted a clear picture of systematic financial abuse. This is one of the most methodical cases of marital financial fraud I've seen, Amanda told me during our third meeting. The good news is that the evidence is overwhelming. The bad news is that recovery may be complicated. Complicated proved to be an understatement. Ethan had moved funds through multiple accounts, some in his name, some in Natalie's, some under business entities I had never heard of. Tracing and reclaiming those assets became a full-time job, running parallel to my actual business responsibilities. Grace, my business partner, stepped up magnificently during this period, taking on extra client meetings and project oversight while I dealt with the legal and financial fallout. When I finally explained the full situation to her, her response was both supportive and practical. "We'll get through this," she assured me. "The business is strong. Our client relationships are solid. This is a setback, not a death sentence for Aligned Interiors." She was right. Despite the temporary cash flow issues caused by Ethan's theft, our reputation for quality work kept clients loyal. The Portland tech company even offered an advance payment to ensure their project stayed on schedule, a vote of confidence that brought me to tears when I received their email. On the personal front, I filed for divorce within days of the confrontation, citing fraud and infidelity. Ethan initially contested, claiming that as my husband, he had implied consent to access my finances. That strategy collapsed when the bank presented evidence of the forged signatures and hidden accounts. "Financial abuse doesn't become legal just because you're married," Amanda explained during a particularly tense mediation session. Mrs. Walker never authorized these transactions, never consented to duplicate cards, and never signed the loan applications you submitted in her name. The criminal implications of his actions finally seemed to register with Ethan. After consulting with his own lawyer, he agreed to a settlement that included full restitution of all stolen funds, plus additional compensation for the business disruption and emotional distress. The legal system moved at its own pace, but within 3 months, the divorce was finalized. The financial recovery would take longer, but at least the legal framework was in place to reclaim what was rightfully mine. Throughout this period, I received occasional updates about Natalie and Jason. Their marriage hadn't survived the revelations of that night. Jason filed for divorce shortly after I did, unable to forgive the financial deception and the role Natalie had played in Ethan's schemes. The most surprising development came 6 months after the confrontation, when Jason reached out to meet for coffee. "I wanted to thank you," he said, looking more relaxed than I had ever seen him during his marriage to Natalie. "If you hadn't uncovered all of this, I would still be drowning in debt. I didn't even know we had. Married to someone who was willing to steal from family." "How are you doing now?" I asked, genuinely curious about his recovery process. "Better. Much better. The bankruptcy was humiliating but necessary. Starting over with clean finances and clear eyes." He hesitated before adding, "Natalie started therapy. Real therapy this time, for the shopping addiction. I hope it helps her." I nodded, surprised to find I could wish her well despite everything. "And Ethan?" Jason shook his head. "Last I heard, Megan left him when the money dried up. He's working at a small investment firm in Nevada. They probably don't know about his history." The mention of Megan reminded me of how completely Ethan's deception had entangled all our lives. I had considered reaching out to her at one point, wondering if she had been yet another victim or a willing participant. Ultimately, I decided it didn't matter. My energy was better spent rebuilding my own life than investigating hers. As for my business, Aligned Interiors not only survived the financial turbulence, but emerged stronger. The experience had forced me to implement rigorous financial safeguards and oversight procedures changes that ultimately improved our operational efficiency and client confidence. I redesigned my home office, exercising the space where so much deception had occurred and creating instead a command center for my thriving business. The house that had once felt contaminated by betrayal gradually transformed back into a home, designed to my taste, supporting my life and work. One unexpected outcome of this painful chapter was my involvement with a local women's financial empowerment group. What began as seeking support during my own crisis evolved into offering guidance to others facing similar situations. Financial abuse often goes unrecognized, I explained during one of their workshops. It hides behind phrases like, "I'll handle the finances," and "Don't worry your pretty head about money matters." But financial independence is crucial to overall independence. These sessions became a healing practice for me, transforming my personal tragedy into educational opportunities for others. Each woman who recognized warning signs in her own relationship or took steps to protect her financial autonomy represented a small victory against the pattern of exploitation that had nearly destroyed my life. 1 year after that fateful text message about my ATM card, I sat in my redesigned home office, reviewing the quarterly projections for aligned interiors. Our client list had grown, our portfolio expanded, our reputation strengthened. The Portland project had led to 2 more major corporate clients, and we were now hiring additional designers to manage the workload. A notification popped up on my calendar, a mentoring session with Casey, a young interior designer who was launching her own firm. I had met her at a business development workshop and offered to share insights from my journey as an entrepreneur. As we talked through her business plan over video call, I found myself emphasizing the importance of maintaining control over financial matters. Even if you partner with someone you trust completely, always maintain visibility into your accounts, I advised. Regular reviews, clear documentation, separate business, and personal finances. These aren't just good business practices, they're essential protections. Casey nodded earnestly, taking notes. My boyfriend keeps saying he should handle the money side since he took some finance classes in college, but something about that makes me uncomfortable. Listen to that discomfort, I told her. Your intuition is sending you an important message. You can collaborate on financial decisions without surrendering control. After our call ended, I reflected on how much had changed in a year. The pain hadn't disappeared entirely. Betrayal of that magnitude leaves lasting marks, but it no longer defined me. Instead, it had transformed into wisdom, resilience, and a determination to help others avoid similar pitfalls. The most profound lesson hadn't been about money or even marriage. It had been about self, reliance, and the courage to stand up for what was mine. Not just my financial assets, but my sense of self, worth, my right to honesty, my expectation of respect. That evening, I walked through my home, touching the surfaces and objects that represented my reclaimed life. The dining table where the confrontation had occurred was gone, replaced by a custom piece I had designed myself. The bedroom furniture had been rearranged. The color scheme changed from the neutral tones Ethan preferred to the rich blues and greens that energized me. This home, this business, this life, they were mine. Not taken, not given, but earned through hard work, protected through difficult decisions, and now flourishing under my sole direction. The journey through betrayal had been painful, but the destination, complete financial and emotional independence, was worth every difficult step. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to stand up for yourself, even when it meant confronting people you loved? What gave you the strength to draw that line? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it inspires you to protect what's yours, trust your instincts, and find the courage to demand the respect you deserve.